Hello everyone, I'm Lao Gao. A few days ago, a viewer mentioned that they hoped we could discuss the Guinness scandal. I have indeed noticed this issue, so today we'll briefly talk about it. Guinness is the largest male talent agency in Japan, primarily managing male idol groups. If you are familiar with Japanese boy bands, they are mostly under the Guinness umbrella. I also believe that many of our viewers might be their fans. So, I'd like to make a special statement here that although we are discussing this topic today, we are merely providing an objective account of the events. There is currently no conclusion on this matter, so we will not make any comments. So what exactly is this about? On March 7th of this year, the British Broadcasting Corporation, BBC, released a documentary film on YouTube. I'm not sure if it was released on other platforms, but I saw it on YouTube, and it's called Predators: Japan's Secret Scandal in Pop Music. It tells a story that has been circulating in Japan for a long time, but no media dared to touch it. It's an urban legend about the founder of Guinness Company, Johnny Kitagawa, allegedly sexually assaulting male artists under the company. It's something I've heard about since shortly after I arrived in Japan. However, no journalists or media have confirmed this matter, although it's not entirely absent, as I later learned that some journalists and media did try. The information wasn't exposed. The content they interviewed was all shelved. Currently, everyone can still watch this BBC documentary on YouTube, and interested viewers can check it out. While BBC, as a British broadcasting company, reported this issue, Japanese media, however, have not covered it at all. Of course, recently some media have started reporting it to some extent, but before BBC's report, Japanese media had basically not touched on this topic. Why does such a strange phenomenon occur? Moreover, if this matter is really as described in the BBC documentary, it is not just a scandal. It could involve very serious crimes. Logically, such news should always be a focus of media attention. However, despite the widespread rumors, there have been no reports or investigations. On the other hand, why is it that Japanese media remained silent while the British Broadcasting Corporation reported on this matter? Actually, there's a special reason for this. The BBC had a similar incident in the past involving a national treasure level host named Jimmy Savile. He was a senior host at the BBC, and when he was alive, he was adored by many, often engaged in charity work, and was even knighted by the British royal family. However, after he passed away in 2011, it was quickly reported that he had sexually assaulted over 200 people, many of whom were underage girls. Many people within the BBC were aware of this, and quite a few reported him, but all these reports, in the end, it was suppressed by the higher-ups at the BBC. Even if someone reported it to the police, the court did convict him of sexual assault. However, related reports about the conviction were completely unseen, as they were all suppressed by the BBC or the higher-ups of other media outlets. So while he was alive, most people did not know he was a habitual offender of sexual assault. It was only after he passed away, as his influence waned, that more reports emerged, and the matter was finally exposed. Due to this kind of history, the new leadership at the BBC believes that the scandals of such media moguls should not be tolerated. Therefore, they took the initiative to report on this issue in Japan, which in a way helped the Japanese media and the victims in Japan. Many journalists and media outlets in Japan actually wanted to report on this matter but were hesitant due to various pressures. Having an external media outlet that is not influenced by Japan's economic or other factors to report on it was beneficial. This matter in a way helped those who wanted to report on it. A month after the BBC reported it, on April 12th, a former male artist from Japan's Guinness company, Okamoto, held a press conference. He stated that before joining the company, known as Johnny's in Japan, translated as Janice in Chinese, he became a trainee at Johnny's company at the age of 15 during junior high. He then began to experience various sexual assaults by the company's owner, Johnny. His revelations indirectly confirmed the BBC's report. His press conference was held at a place called the Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan. This is a venue where Japanese media cannot enter, only foreign media can, and it's set up like a foreign media club in Japan. It's specifically used for announcing things that Japanese media might be hesitant to report on or don't proactively cover. Actually, this wasn't the first time Okamoto mentioned being sexually assaulted in the media. He first publicly spoke about it in the media last November. He brought up this particular issue during a conversation with a highly renowned Japanese YouTuber by the name of Gashi. Gashi is exceedingly well known throughout Japan for unveiling scandals within the Japanese entertainment industry. His channel tends to get shut down almost immediately because his revelations are often exceedingly intense, and he frequently shares photos that are quite revealing. Consequently, his content on any media platform might result in community guideline violations. This individual is neither an actor nor a celebrity. He's a veteran in Japan's entertainment industry. He used to hang out with many celebrities. Later, he suddenly defected and began exposing the entertainment industry's dark secrets for a special reason. He had also helped some people in the industry do bad things, which were all exposed, making his revelations impactful. Last year, he fled to Dubai and was elected as a Japanese parliamentarian remotely. This shows his high popularity, especially among young Japanese who supported him by voting, leading to his election. However, someone later reported him, and the Japanese police issued an international warrant for his arrest on extortion charges. His current whereabouts remain uncertain. He is indeed quite extraordinary. Should the opportunity arise, we intend to produce a film about this incident. The purpose was to unveil the darker aspects of Japan's entertainment industry involving Okamoto. During a live broadcast, Okamoto revealed that he was sexually assaulted by Johnny's superior, Washitukawa. At that time, he was young. Now he is 26 years old, and the assault occurred when he was approximately 15. He expressed that following the assault, he lacked the courage to resist or confide in anyone. However, he was fully aware that it was a criminal act. Consequently, he discreetly captured some footage using his phone. Furthermore, he still possesses the key to the hairdresser's establishment. Due to being assaulted over an extended period, the perpetrator provided him with a key to summon him at any time. He noted that these items can now serve as protection for his life, so he is not inclined to disclose them easily. The BBC report and Okamoto's revelations are not directly interconnected. Both parties revealed this matter from different perspectives, one from a journalist's angle and the other from a victim's angle. Now let me introduce the boss of Janice, who is the main figure in the sexual assault case, Johnny Kitagawa. Johnny Kitagawa was born in 1931 and passed away in 2019. He was purely Japanese, not of mixed descent, with both parents being Japanese. However, his name includes an English name, Johnny, because he was born in the United States. Therefore, he held dual citizenship in Japan and the United States. He was born quite early, at a time when Japan might still have allowed dual citizenship, but it was no longer permitted after the war. He now only has Japanese nationality, but at that time he had dual citizenship. His father was a Japanese Buddhist monk practicing in America, named Kitagawa Jido. He had a brother and a sister. His brother was an excellent student and later worked at NASA, being an important scientist in the Apollo program, but unfortunately passed away at a young age. His sister later returned to Japan with him. In fact, he spent most of his life in Japan, only attending high school and college in the United States. He returned to Japan shortly after he was born. Later, he went to the United States for high school and college, and after graduating from college, he returned. In 1952, after finishing college, he returned to Japan and worked at the American Embassy. In 1962, at the age of 31, Kitagawa established Johnny & Associates in Japan, primarily managing male idol groups. Initially, he wasn't involved in the entertainment industry at all. He was a youth baseball coach. In the 1950s and 60s, just after World War II, Japan was under American control. The US military was managing various aspects of Japan's reconstruction. During this time, Janice, as a member of the US forces, was involved in some of Japan's reconstruction efforts. While working at the American Embassy, he noticed that Japanese children were very interested in American things. He brought them American candies and some interesting little items, which the children particularly liked. Later, these children were especially eager to play baseball, a sport that was introduced to Japan by the US military. This Johnny was quite proficient at playing baseball, so he organized a group of local children into a baseball team. Since he consistently had some American toys or small items that were particularly novel to Japanese children at that time, many kids gathered around him. They might not have been entirely there for the baseball, but they joined his team nonetheless. Initially, the baseball team might have had only approximately 30 members, but it continued to grow. At its peak, it was said to have around 1,000 members, resembling more of a club than a traditional baseball team, but it was entirely composed of young boys. The little boys were there, and he was the only adult in his 30s. Then one day he went with some of the boys to see a movie, which was like an opera. After watching it, he thought, hey, with so many handsome boys around me, why not let them sing and dance? It might be more interesting than playing baseball. So he established the Johnny's Company, and as his baseball team grew in size, it was later named Johnny's. The youth baseball team later established this entertainment company, which was called Johnny's Company. At that time, Japan did have boy bands, but they were mainly bands with roles like drummers, guitarists, and singers, each with their own responsibilities. There were bands like these, but there were no boy bands that purely sang and danced with microphones. It was this Johnny Kitagawa who first established such an idol group in Japan. It soon gained popularity among Japanese youth. After its start, Johnny & Associates launched their first boy band, named Johnny's. The subsequent group was named Four Leaves. Nonetheless, these groups did not achieve significant popularity. The true wave of popularity commenced during the 1980s, with the rise of numerous boy bands that individuals might recognize today. Johnny Kitagawa never entered into marriage. In retrospect, it could be because he had a preference for boys. Presently, the president of Johnny's Company is his niece, who is the daughter of his elder sister. The individual known as Jotu Joriko is quite commendable. Now let's delve into what this particular situation entails. Based on the latest reports, the narratives provided by all the victims regarding the sexual assault incidents are strikingly similar. Johnny Kitagawa's residence was notably spacious, and he frequently extended invitations to young artists affiliated with his company. However, these individuals were predominantly not established artists, but rather trainees, or those who had registered for auditions at his company. Johnny would invite them to his home as guests, but such visits necessitated an overnight stay, during which everyone would spend the night and have the opportunity to become acquainted with one another. For individuals who are actively engaged in practicing or registering for auditions at Johnny's Company, having the opportunity to spend an entire night at Johnny's expansive residence, which is the home of the company's owner, and meet him face to face is regarded as a significant privilege. It is also perceived as a valuable opportunity to distinguish oneself among the numerous candidates, as not everyone is extended an invitation to his residence. However, upon their arrival, they discover that the situation unfolds in ways they could not have anticipated. There is a specific room designated for the invited trainees to spend the night. Usually after dinner, this person, Johnny, would ask one or two trainees to go to this room, telling them to quickly take a shower and go to sleep. Then, in the middle of the night, Johnny would go to this room to sexually assault them. Most of the victims' accounts follow this basic pattern. These trainees, being children around 12 or 13 years old, are in someone else's home with no familiar faces around. The parents were not present, and they didn't dare to make a sound, so they could only pretend to sleep and silently endure the sexual assault. Some people, after experiencing these assaults, might think, if I just endure this pain, maybe it will give me a chance to get on stage in the future. They try to calm their mindset in this way. It's said that most children, as long as it's not their first time at Johnny's house, generally know what will happen next. Some children go many times, and there's something very unbelievable that was revealed by the victim. There are certain children who were even sent by their parents intentionally. These children were not selected by Johnny himself, but rather their parents would request, please consider our child, or allow our child to have a meal at your residence, or let them stay overnight. There are indeed parents like this. It's uncertain whether these parents are aware of what might transpire next, but they are exceedingly eager to send their children to Johnny's house. If Johnny is especially pleased with a child, he might repeatedly extend invitations for them to come over for meals, inviting them to stay overnight and even giving them a key to the house, just like Okamoto, who had a key to his house. The children who received a key often felt a special sense of honor, considering the large number of children auditioning for the Guinness Company or as trainees. Having a key gave them a feeling of being a cut above the rest. Of course, some children didn't see it that way. They felt it was a rather shameful matter. Everyone's reaction was different. The descriptions of the sexual assaults mentioned earlier all came from different victims. The individuals involved are from various age groups and have no connection with each other. Therefore, even if similar information comes from different sources, the credibility of this information is relatively high. Additionally, Okamoto mentioned that he recorded a video and released a short clip showing a few seconds on Japanese media, capturing a scene of Johnny sleeping. It's important to note that Johnny never appears in the media, so finding a photo of him is quite difficult. He doesn't accept any interviews or photos, so being able to capture footage of him sleeping is definitely a sign of being very close, either being able to enter his room or him entering yours. Of course, what he released isn't the entire footage. It's said that the full content of this footage provides considerable evidence to prove the existence of such information. In cases like this, if there were videos as evidence, it would be very advantageous, but often there aren't any, right? This is an effect that only became possible after the widespread use of smartphones. This information might have occurred much earlier, perhaps as far back as the 1960s or 70s, but people back then didn't have the media to record it. Smartphones with real video recording capabilities likely only emerged after 2010, and by that time, Jenny himself might have been nearly 80 years old, meaning it was very late in his life. Some interest was generated, which might have been recorded as evidence. So, based on the current information and evidence, it seems quite possible that the incident of Johnny's sexual assault on minors is a fact. The earliest known case of reporting Johnny's sexual assault might have occurred in the 1960s. There were two people involved in reporting this issue. One of them was a member of the second generation of the Guinness Group, specifically a member of the four-leaf group named Kitamiya Tsugumi. In 1988, when he was 39 years old, he wrote a book, the name of which is... The Light Game Festival was a top event for Guinness in the 80s. Kitamiya Tsugu, a member of the boy band, wrote a book as their senior, seemingly to share some of his personal thoughts with these juniors. In this book, he revealed that in 1965, when Johnny's was just established, he was sexually assaulted by Johnny Kitagawa himself at the age of 15. As I mentioned earlier, two people reported this incident. The other person wrote a book the year after Kitamiya's book was published. He was one of Johnny's first idols, a member of the Johnny's group named Kanatani Ryo. The title of his book is Johnny's Counterattack. The book mentions that when he was 11 years old, before the Guinness Company was even established, and he was just a baseball player, he had already experienced the rise of Johnny Kitagawa's influence. This indicates that Johnny Kitagawa's sexual assaults began very early on. This revelation has been around for over 50 years, right? Until his passing, there may have been ongoing assaults during that time, although these two books did attract some attention when they were published. However, inexplicably, this was ignored by all the media, and the Guinness Company was not affected at all. Then, moving into the 1990s, Guinness continued to launch popular groups, including the well-known Smart, Tokyo V6, and Arashi, among others. These were very popular groups in the 1990s, and some of them are still very popular today. In 1996, there was the Guinness group called Shadow, as I mentioned earlier. In the 1980s, there was a very popular group called Kotenki. This kogain was formed by combining two groups, one called Ko and the other called Gain. When this Ko group was established, there was also a corresponding group called Shadow. A member of this shadow group, named Hiramoto Jun, also wrote a book titled The Complete Lingni Temple, in which he mentioned being sexually assaulted by his boss. Since the 1980s, male artists have continuously written books to expose such incidents. Their boss had allegedly sexually assaulted them, and these accusations continued until Johnny's passing in 2019, essentially never stopping. Sometimes the reports were more frequent, with new ones emerging every year, and at other times they would come out every few years, but they basically never ceased. Even now, 4 years after his death, people are still coming forward with these accusations, right? Throughout these decades of allegations, the Japanese media remained silent, but there was one media outlet that extensively reported on the matter. This media outlet was the only Japanese media to assist Okamoto with the exposé, called Shukan Bunshun. Shukan Bunshun is well known in Japan for exposing scandals in the entertainment industry. In 1999, Shukan Bunshun reported for 14 weeks on Johnny's sexual assault of artists under their management, with testimonies from over 10 people. This caused a big stir because Shukan Bunshun is a famous media outlet, and Johnny's company quickly filed a defamation lawsuit. Shukan Bunshun faced a defamation charge, with a demand for 100 million yen, arguing the claims were unfounded and harming the company's image. Surprisingly, in the initial trial, Shukan Bunshun lost. The court found the sexual assault evidence lacking, based only on vague testimonies from a few people. Major Japanese media quickly reported Bunshun's loss, and Bunshun expressed dissatisfaction with the ruling. Continuing on, in 2003, the ruling changed to favor Bunshun, recognizing Johnny Kitagawa's involvement in sexual assault. However, Johnny's company wasn't satisfied and kept appealing. Ultimately, in 2004, the Japanese Supreme Court upheld the decision, dismissing the appeal, and Bunshun finally won. This means the court acknowledged Johnny's involvement in sexual assault, but all Japanese media stayed silent about this outcome. No media outlet reported on this matter except for Bunshun itself. When we won, but all other media did not report it. Why would all Japanese media protect such a person? It might not be to protect him, but to protect their relationship with the Johnny's company. Around the year 2000, it was precisely the period when Johnny's company had the greatest influence over Japanese media. At that time, almost every entertainment program on major Japanese media featured artists from Johnny's company. It is said that if they reported on this matter, it could potentially affect the future fate of the entire TV station. So all the TV stations decided to remain silent. However, this matter was not over. Just a year later, in 2005, after the verdict ended, a former member of the group, Kiyama Eimu, published a book titled To Smart and All Johnny's Artists, with a very striking headline, "I was just one of Johnny Kitagawa's lovers." The content of this book was very sensational and explicit. Those who know about the group Kudenki might be aware that there isn't a member named Kiyama. Indeed, Kiyama was originally supposed to be a member of Kudenki. However, he decided to leave the group right before their debut. Why did he choose to leave the group? It's written in the book that it was because Johnny Kitagawa wanted to give him injections. He said that Johnny Kitagawa particularly liked short, underage males with a somewhat lolly appearance. So to keep the boys he liked from growing up and to maintain that lolly state, he would inject them with certain drugs, which were likely female hormones, to prevent their development, keeping them from growing too tall and making their male characteristics less apparent. Initially, he was only sexually assaulted by Johnny Kitagawa. At that time, he felt he could still endure it. After all, he'd already become a prospective member of the group. He thought if he could just endure a bit longer, he might debut. After debuting, as he grew older, he wouldn't continue to be assaulted, as that was the case with previous seniors. However, just when the group was about to launch, the company started giving them injections, and he suddenly became scared. According to him, the other members had all received injections. To avoid being injected, he decided to leave the group, feeling the risk was too high. He didn't want to take such a risk, nor did he want to become a man without male characteristics. So he eventually left the group. The issue of Guinness injecting female hormones into boy band members was mentioned in previous exposé books. If this is true, it would be incredibly terrifying and a very serious crime. So, what I've just shared with everyone are the allegations of sexual assault by Johnny, up to this point. If we were to organize this event in detail, there are still many fragmented pieces that may not be as straightforward, as some people are unwilling to show their faces and only provide such testimony saying, "I have also been sexually assaulted, but there are many people who don't know exactly who did it." Now, those who know the names, the appearances, and some details of the situation are the ones who have published books. And even with that, there may be more than 10 cases. So speaking of this, everyone might have a question you might have wanted to ask earlier but couldn't interrupt me. I know you want to ask, in 2004, since Junichi Tokugawa was found guilty, even if other media didn't report it, did he not serve time or face any punishment? In fact, even though he lost the case, he did not receive any punishment. It's unclear if there were any minor penalties, but there were no punishments for crimes like rape or sexual assault. This is because the recognition of rape or sexual assault under Japanese law has some unique conditions, and some other countries' laws might have similar issues. In Japan, for a rape or indecent assault charge to be established, for a person to be considered raped, they must be female. Even if a male is raped or assaulted, it does not constitute rape or assault under the law. However, this law was amended in 2017, meaning that incidents occurring after 2017 can be recognized as rape or assault. Before this amendment, this aspect could not be addressed legally, and other charges might be applicable, but not rape or assault. On the other hand, even though the 2017 amendment made the law applicable to both genders, there are still issues. The Japanese law defines rape with a necessary condition that the assault must involve violence or coercion. If he didn't hit you or use a knife to threaten you, such an act wouldn't be considered rape. This condition might be contrary to the laws of most countries. In Western legal systems, the determination of rape generally depends on whether the victim consented. If the victim did not give clear consent, any resulting sexual acts might be considered sexual assault. However, in Japan, there needs to be clear evidence of violence or coercion. You might even need to clearly state that you don't consent for it to count. The key part is having evidence, meaning there must be physical harm from the coercion. Without injuries, they can't prove violence, or if you say you don't consent. If you say this and it's recorded, only then can they prove you were coerced with violence. Thus, it's very hard to establish rape in Japan. In reality, many cases of sexual assault involving minors. These incidents often do not involve violent coercion because, first of all, minors and adults are not on equal footing in terms of physical strength and condition. Therefore, minors usually do not choose direct confrontation, and without direct confrontation, the likelihood of violent coercion is relatively small. Additionally, many cases of sexual assault on minors occur within the family. We've discussed many similar cases before because guardians have absolute control over the child and even have a certain ability to brainwash them. In general, in instances of sexual abuse involving minors, the lack of violent coercion is more frequently observed because it is simply unnecessary, which creates a legal loophole. This is also the reason why numerous minors do not report the abuse after experiencing sexual assault. They might even empathize with or comprehend the perpetrator. In the recent case involving Johnny's sexual assault, the majority of victims have come forward, yet many still assert that Johnny is a good person, akin to a father figure to them, and without his influence, they would not be where they are today. Without their success or something similar, there are these strange complex feelings involved. This is common in cases of sexual assault on minors, where victims develop Stockholm Syndrome. We'll make a video to explain Stockholm Syndrome to everyone soon. Besides this, there's another issue with Japanese law that is very disadvantageous for minors who are sexually assaulted, which is the age of consent issue. In many countries, there's an age of consent, marking when individuals are seen as having the judgment to consent to sexual activities. Above this age, their consent is valid. In Western nations, this age is usually 16 to 18. In Japan, it's 13, meaning for those under 13, it's a crime regardless of violence, coercion, or consent. In Japan, for those over 13, if you don't resist, it's seen as consent. This differs from Western countries, where you must give consent for it not to be a crime. In Japan, you must clearly resist. Why is the age so low? This law is very old, set in 1907, and hasn't changed in over a century. Back then, people married young, and by 15 or 16, they might have kids, so they set the age of self-judgment for sexual assault at a reasonable level for that time. Setting the age of self-judgment at 13 is relatively reasonable. However, looking at it now, this law should be amended. Why hasn't it been changed yet? It's because there is a provision that can compensate for the issue of the age being set at 13 and can address the problem of guardians abusing minors. According to Japanese law, if the perpetrator is the child's guardian, age and consent are no longer considered. It all counts as sexual assault, and this provision seems to address some of the previous issues. However, this provision also has a problem, which is the definition of a guardian. The Japanese law's interpretation of a guardian is somewhat narrow, stating that it must be a parent, foster parent, relative, or staff member of a shelter. So, if a child has no parents and a staff member of a shelter sexually assaults the child, age is not considered. It would be considered theft entirely. In Western countries, the scope of who is considered a guardian is broader, including school teachers and staff from training institutions. So, if judged by the laws of other countries, Kitagawa would undoubtedly be guilty of sexual assault and rape. However, under Japanese law, even if Kitagawa were still alive, there is a possibility of being found not guilty, though not a certainty. It seems like the laws have been circumvented, and it's unclear if he intentionally avoided these legal issues. But as it stands, the law does not seem to be on the side of the victims. If ultimately the case is judged as not guilty, then this issue might be more of a moral one, only involving civil compensation. Following this, media and societal attention will focus on how the company handles the situation, especially since the individual in question is no longer around. The key point is whether the company can respond appropriately to the impact and damage caused. Recently, the president of the company uploaded a video addressing the matter. In response to this matter, they said they would actively listen to the victims' opinions and handle the situation cautiously. They didn't specify how they would address it, only that they are maintaining a positive attitude towards dealing with it. Lastly, I want to emphasize that this issue has not been definitively characterized yet, and there is only one side of testimony. Although this testimony seems very credible from an emotional standpoint, it does not have a direct relationship with legal recognition. I also kindly request everyone to refrain from speculating about other potential victims lightly, as such conjecture could potentially cause more unnecessary harm. In principle, I believe it is sufficient to protect some of the victims who have already filed formal complaints. For those who do not wish to mention or discuss this matter, they have their own lives to lead now. Since Ginny is no longer present with us, we ought to respect their decision. Alright, let's conclude it for today. If there are any additional developments in the future, we will share them with everyone. See you next time. Goodbye.